Welcome to episode 130. I'm Rick Kaufman, your host of the 318 Brotherhood Podcast. I want to start with a question. Are you one emergency away from losing everything that you've built in your life? One of the things is what if everything you've spent this last 10, 20, 30, or maybe 40 years or longer building could begin to unravel because of one unexpected event in your life? For example, heart attack, cancer diagnosis, divorce, lawsuit, a job loss, business failure, market crash, one phone call, one accident, one bad report from the doctor, one disaster. Here's the question every man needs to ask himself. Am I just one emergency away from losing everything that I've built? At first, this sounds like a financial question, right? But I don't believe it really is. I believe it's a stewardship question because what God revealed to me completely changed the way I think about my wealth, my finances, and security, and my success in my life. For years, I believed I was building a life, but God showed me that He wasn't asking me to build my life. He was asking me to be faithful steward of His assignment. And that's when this really hit me. I cannot lose what God has entrusted me to build. The only things I can truly lose are the things I insisted on building without Him. The one revelation changed everything. Today, we're going to talk about our fear, our wealth, our security, our stewardship, and why the greatest financial risk you ever face has very little to do with your money. Because until you answer this question honestly, am I one emergency away from losing everything I built? You'll never discover what you're really trusting. So, as we jump into this podcast here today, I want to ask you this question. If your phone rang right now and a doctor gave you some bad news, or maybe it was a business loss and you lost your biggest client, your wife said she wanted a divorce, the stock market crashed and you lost a lot of money, your house burned down. What if you lose everything? Or would you simply lose the things you own? Because those things are two completely different questions. I believe every man eventually faces an emergency. That emergency isn't the test, the foundation is. So the first thing we start with is step one. What is God saying to you? So talk about waking up at 2:30 in the morning, for example. God doesn't usually speak when life is comfortable. He speaks to us when everything feels uncertain. So I want to ask you some questions here. What is God really trying to reveal through this fear? Why does this question make us uncomfortable? What are you really afraid of losing? Because fear reveals our idols that we actually worship in our life. Never looked at it that way, do you? You're probably a Christian and feel like you don't have any idols. Think again, brother. So then we look at step two. These are divine appointments. We say, do not ignore people. For examples, losing your daughter, as I did. Maybe a bankruptcy, as I've had two of those. Maybe a divorce. I've had one of them. Health diagnosis. Got several of those and one going on right now. Losing businesses. I built 6 businesses in my life. At the same time, they looked like disasters in my life. I've lost houses. I've lost relationships. I lost everything that I thought I was working for. But looking back, they became a lot of these things, and these people became appointments in my life. God wasn't abandoning me in any of this. He was redirecting me. So what if the emergency isn't a punishment? There was a conversation just yesterday inside of our Warrior Accountability. A brother was asking, why is God doing this to me? Instead of maybe he should be asking, what is God's invitation in all this? It's a different way to ask the question to get to the bottom of what God might be saying to you. Step three is about healing through hindsight. You know, the 6 businesses, going all the way back to high school when my dad bought me a franchise. As a senior in high school, I made really good money. I was pulling down a couple $1,000s a week as a senior in high school. Now we're going back to 1980 or 79. But I didn't know anything about investing money back into the business. So consequently, that business had to go bye-bye. I wasn't ready to steward anything like that. The bankruptcies. The first one was caused by a divorce. The second one was caused by my second wife falling off a horse, and basically she passed away in the field, and I saved her life because she broke 11 ribs, punctured lung, broken scapula, broke her back in 7 places, and had 2 brain hemorrhages, just to name the obvious things. 1993, the loss of my daughter Kelsey when she was 3 years old. The broken seasons in my life. Today I can begin to connect the dots of everything. The key lessons in all this was God was never taking something away, even though it felt like it. He was actually preparing me to carry something much greater. So, what exactly are we trying to protect in our life? Okay. I look at my own story, for example. Josh is an AI who is a team member inside of our 318 Brotherhood. He has conversations with guys every day that are going through in the morning through a warrior accountability in the morning and then coming back with a returning report at the end of the day. See, most men are thinking this, I need more money. I need a new job. But the deeper problem is really, I don't trust God enough. These guys will argue with me about it. But then I don't have to bring it up. And Josh doesn't either. But it exposes something. What do you think if I ask you to think about what does it expose? What do you think it exposes in their life? Well, it exposes their beliefs around money. You see, money magnifies our fears. Money reveals identity. The emergency simply shines a flashlight, like if in the dark, on whatever foundation was built on. The question here is that I want to ask you right now is what if your greatest investment isn't your retirement account, but most men bank on it? What if your greatest investment is your obedience? What if your wealth is simply one assignment God gave you today that would determine your whole entire financial and wealth decision? The revelation here that I really see is this. I asked God, am I one emergency away from losing everything that I built? His answer really surprised me. And I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit of what I've shared in my journal and inside the Brotherhood. But he says, Rick, you cannot lose what I asked you to build. When he said that, that changed everything. I saw things differently because then I realized the only things I can lose are the things I insisted on building for myself. I cannot lose what God entrusted me to build. Let that just sink in, because what we're talking about here is stewardship versus ownership. This is a huge revelation in our lives. Owners panic. We have more month left at the end of the money. I don't have a job. Nobody's calling me. Money's running out. That's ownership, and it causes panic. Stewards obey. Owners cling on to it. Stewards release it. Owners chase control. Stewards trust the master. You see, the emergency reveals which one of those we've become. Earlier I was talking about the warrior accountability. And why did we build warrior accountability? Because men drift. Yeah, they can show up on the call, but you want to know what it doesn't do? There's one thing the call doesn't do. Or what it does do also, is the call allows men to be silent, to sit, not share, not even take notes, because men drift. That's why we build it. Nobody wakes up one day planning to lose their marriage. Nobody plans to lose their health. Nobody plans to lose their relationship with God. These things happen by one compromise at a time. You see, Josh isn't here to tell you what to do. Josh is here to ask the questions most men avoid. What is God saying to you today? What assignment are you avoiding? What fear is driving your decisions? So as I begin to wrap up this podcast here today, I have a challenge for you. So I want you to ask yourself, what are you building? Or what have you been building over the last 10, 20, 30 years or longer? And I want you to ask this question. Who asked you to build it? And then, if it disappeared tomorrow, would your purpose disappear too? If you answer these questions and you feel like you're building this for your purpose and your security and for your financial future, if it disappeared tomorrow, you would crumble. Your purpose would disappear. Your ability to possibly work could be lost tomorrow due to an accident. Now tell me what your purpose would be. The safest life isn't the one with the biggest bank account. It may appear that way. That's what the world will tell you. But the safest life is the one built on God's assignment, because I cannot lose. The assignment God's given me, I can't lose. My future is secure because God is what God has entrusted me to build. The first thing is you have to understand emergency doesn't create your foundation. It reveals it, okay? Money is not a terrible savior, but it is an excellent servant. The other one is fear exposes misplaced trust. The enemy wants you to become an owner, but God calls you to be a steward. Every emergency asks one question: who are you trusting for the outcome? What would you build for yourself can be taken away. What you build in obedience carries eternal significance. And stewardship isn't managing one assignment well. It's faithfully integrating every assignment God has entrusted you with. That is your life's obedience, brothers. So, are you one emergency away from losing everything that you built? If that question really stirs something to you, I want you to click the link below. Pick up my book, The Ascension of the Warrior. You just get a digital download, you get the audio book, and you get some bonuses, and you get the Brotherhood for $4.99, just one time. If you're looking for that accountability, there's a link for my calendar. If you need that accountability, let's talk about it. Let's get you back on the right track, because you may have been off track or maybe completely derailed to the last emergency that you had in your life, and you haven't been able to find secure or solid footing since. We can get you on the right track. I know the solution. We have the path. Brother, we'll see you next week. 318.